Sorry for the wait, everyone. I was ordering dinner. Don't exactly have the mental fortitude to cook for myself tonight after coming home from work. Well, as we did yesterday, this is a chill fireside storytelling. These stories being read through the Final Fantasy Lodestone. A lot of these stories are going to be prequels to the Shadowbringers expansion, so fair warning. Although not all of it's not necessarily going to be a spoiler, but rather some characters and concepts might be foreign or not understood unless you've played the game that far. That said, let's get started. In today's story, this one is called Through His Eyes. In a time long forgotten, men and gods were one and the same, and upon a star was their home. Upon that star was their home. Men ruled supreme over the corporeal world, within and without which existed an ethereal realm. Through the ages, this realm has been called many names, but in the beginning it was known as the underworld, the place to which the departed souls returned, as water flows to the sea and rises to the sky before raining down to the land once more. The underworld was a fundamental part of the circle of life, and for this reason it was regarded at once with familiarity and reverence by men who, despite their godlike powers, could not claim dominion over it. Wise though they were, they would catch only fleeting glimpses of the realm, channel but a sliver of its power, and do not but control its ceaseless flow. However, among those who abided... Oh, I realize the audio for the Fireside audio isn't coming through. There we go. Nice little crackling of the fire being in the background. My bad. And where were we? However, among those who abided in that age, there were a chosen few who possessed an affinity to the underworld, and among their number, one stood tall. Another idyllic evening had descended upon Amarat. Citizens strolled carelessly among the streets of the gleaming capital, identical black-robed figures bathed in gentle torchlight. Some would while the night away in agreeable company. Others retire early to their beds. The illumination served equally well for both. But he had chosen to spend the time alone at a park, reclining upon the manicured lawn. The cowl of his robe had fallen back to reveal locks of white hair, which framed the unique red mask covering the upper half of his face, the sole item among his apparel that was his and his alone. To see him laying there, most would have assumed that he was simply gazing up at the stars, or perhaps the glittering towers that seemed to reach for them. The sights that were reflected in his eyes, however, were a far cry from any seen by most men. What he beheld was the ether that comprised of all things, radiating life. From the depths of the land to the heights of the firmament, its light shone bright. Here and there, lives that had served their purpose drifted upon the current before suddenly plunging down into the underworld. That he could hold these wonders was not a wonder in of itself. Many were blessed with the sight, yet very few indeed were strong in the gift as him. As a man focuses his gaze upon the object of his interest, he needed but to direct his attention towards ether to behold all the lives born upon the currents. So acute was his vision, you could make out not only the soul, the heart of life, but also discern the subtle differences in each hue of each, telling individual lives apart. And by virtue of this transcendent skill, he had often been likened to a denizen of the underworld. For a while he continued gazing up at the sky, watching the dance of ether alone in his thoughts, until the soft rustling of grass announced the approach of another. Noticing this, he shut his eyes tight as if to will away the din, but the steps only grew nearer, growing louder and louder, before finally becoming a voice overhead. I heard the tidings. Congratulations, Hades. Or should I say, Honorable Emmett Selk of the Convocation of 14. I pretend not to notice. If I pretend not to notice, perhaps he will leave me in peace, he thought without much hope. And, as expected, but no less to his disappointment, the owner of the voice did not make leave. Resigned, he grudgingly rolled over and heaved himself to his feet. Having repositioned his cowl, he addressed the grinning visitor, and with unconcealed displeasure. There is naught to congratulate. I merely fill the void. One which, I would remind you, only exists because you refused the honor. It went to the candidate best suited to the office. You find practical use for that which you can see, while I enjoy seeing for its own sake. And what does that say about your suitability to your own office? Perhaps I shall raise the subject to the hall of the rhetoric. As he said these words, he glared daggers through his mask, but the threat, idle, as they both knew, served only to elicit a snort of amusement from the chief of the bureau of the architect, his close friend Hythlodaeus. Attired in black robe and a white mask, the man looked entirely unremarkable. Yet like Hades, he was eminently gifted in the ability to behold the underworld. As a matter of fact, were it purely a question of vision, his was the keener of the two. Precious little escaped his eyes, which could discern essence and appearance as plainly as night and day. This made him amply qualified for the highest office of the Bureau of the Architect, the institution which oversaw the creation of concepts, and incurably smug. Ah, Crimson Bunny, Leo. Thank you for stopping by. I could say I am doing better, but I'm not in the business of trauma dumping. But hey, today, and moving ever so forward, forging ahead as they will, and try to keep things chill around here. But thank you for stopping by. Where were we? Ah, yes. Irked by Hythlodaeus' unshakable good cheer, he snapped, "Was there anything else?" And immediately regretted it when he saw the man's grin broaden. "As a matter of fact, yes. Have you informed a certain someone of your appointment?" "Hardly necessary. The memoriam will see to it, if the gossips in the street haven't already. News pertaining of the 14 is wont to spread quickly." "Were you asked my opinion, I would tell you such a momentous message warrants a personal delivery. Shall I ascertain our friend's whereabouts? It will take but only a moment." "I did not ask your opinion, nor less your help. I understand you have pressing tasks and would not like to keep you from them." For the first time since Hythlodaeus arrived, the grin faded from his lips, the tilt of the man's head all but asking how Hades could have known. And though he was certain he would regret answering the unspoken question, in the end he found himself yielding to the interminable silence. With a sigh, he continued. "A short while ago, you received a visitor from the words of La Habrea. This invariably means you have been tasked with an inspection of considerable import, and by rights you should not have time to spend in idleness. That you should seek me out in such a juncture suggests you have seen a consultation or, the mind boggles, a request." Oh, pardon me. I had a yawn queuing up there. For a moment, Hythlodaeus said nothing, as if mulling over the words. Then his shoulders began to shake with laughter. "You wound me, old friend. I merely chanced to notice you lying there and wished to offer my congratulations." As he continued, his voice took on an impish tone. "And I dare say, given your new responsibilities, you've even less time than me to spend in idleness. Of course, you were never one to rouse yourself, save you deemed a matter worthy of your attention." Though said in jest, the uninvited observation did not improve his mood. "You have offered your congratulations," he said testily. "If there's naught else, I shall be on my way." Seeing him turn to leave, Hythlodaeus hastily changed his tone. "Wait, As you say, I have a consultation for you, and a request. Will you not hear me out, most eminent Emmett Selk? An immortal bird? Hades repeated as they made their way through the restricted area of the Bureau of the Architect. Hythlodaeus nodded. To be precise, it is not a living being, but magic woven in the likeness of a bird. One possessed of puissant healing powers, and as benefits a masterwork of the words of La Habrea. It is a thing of beauty. I don't doubt it. So what, then, is the problem? As I said, it's not a living being. The concept proposed was magic in avian disguise. With this in mind, Hythlodaeus stretched out a hand to the ginormous gate that stood before them. Soundlessly, the towering doors swung open, and Hades found himself wincing at the ear-rending cry that emanated from within. Furrowing his brow, he stepped across the threshold to be greeted with the sight of a magnificent bird, its plumes fairly afire, circling high in the vaulted hall. Having marked the creature's undeniable beauty, it took him but another moment to identify the problem, an unmistakable light shining in its heart. His breath caught in his throat. A soul? How? Through the mastery of creation magics, men could weave anything into existence. Anything they could imagine. They could bring forth anything, that is, except a soul. As Hades well knew, souls spontaneously manifested within creatures that were born in accordance with the laws of nature. It was a gift of the star itself, long held to be impossible to recreate. No artificial being, no matter how subtly sculpted in the image of the nature, could come to possess a soul. Such creations occupied a separate classification known as arcane entities. There was an incident, Hythlodaeus began. During the concept's examination, a drifting soul emerged with it, a soul burdened with regret, judging by the being's behavior. It rages against the pull of the underworld. As he listened, Hades kept his gaze fixed on the creature, which flew about in a frenzy. No sooner would it dash itself against the wall with an explosion of broken feathers than it would heal itself repeatedly and repeat the grisly feat. This self-destructive dance unfolded again and again, with the creature occasionally giving vent to its overflowing magic reserves, or fury, as it seemed to him, as fiery breath. So I'm pretty sure he's talking about a phoenix. Witnessing the excruciating display, his thoughts poured forth unbidden from his lips. Consumed by death, it thrashes blindly about. It will only know pain and suffering and inflict the same upon others. A pitiful existence. Such moving empathy. It's as if you wore the feathers yourself. He waved a dismissive hand. Yes, but what do you intend to do with it? Masterwork or no, we cannot well leave it as is. There, Hythlodaeus turned to face him, that irritating smile having returned. Oh, sorry, my bad. Where was I? There, Hythlodaeus returned to face him, that irritating smile having returned, and again he knew the pang of regret. As it is immortal after a fashion, we have not the ability to return it to the underworld. Our efforts would only cause it pain. Nay, we require the services of a powerful mage, and I know of none more powerful than you. Once more he found himself glaring daggers at his friend, whose grin had become broader than ever. But rather than give him the satisfaction of a complaint, as he did, his silhouette wavered and danced. Then all of a sudden, like a shadow lengthening, his form began to swell. Through the thrum of gathering ether, he heard Hythlodaeus mark, "Never ceases to impress me." He knew well what his friend beheld, the unbridled power of the underworld pouring forth into his being. In such moments, he felt as if he was one with its flow. Though mages were plentiful, not even among the best of the 14 could one find another capable of wielding such power. Ere long, his transformation was complete, and Hythlodaeus was left to crane his neck up Hythlodaeus was left to cran his neck up at him. Indeed, there is no better candidate. Allow me to congratulate you again, Emet-Selch. He let out a quiet breath, a sigh mingled with laughter. Then he faced the bird and set about his task. Your Radiance? Your Radiance. The voice rumbled from a distance, impatient and insistent. Drowsily, he opened his eyes and, through the haze of sleep, inadvertently focused upon the flow of ether, the habit of eons. Unlike eons ago, however, there was no brilliant shine to greet this light, but a wan, sickly glow. A guttering candle where once a flame once blazed. His face reflexively contorted in disgust. Gathering his thoughts, he finally remembered where he was. Dozed off in the chair again. Ah, the joys of old age. Your Radiance, it is the appointed hour. The voice rumbled from right before him. He cast a bleary gaze towards the sound to see a young man, tall and strapping, and golden-haired, regarding him anxiously. Though he was still well shy of his 20th name day, the crease which adorned his forehead added years to his grandson's appearance. This body's grandson, he corrected himself. Then he remembered the boy, Varus, had been eager to report his recent suppression of unrest in some forsaken province or another. Scarcely a matter of warranting a formal audience, let alone rousing me for. Perhaps the boy had finally scraped together the courage to crab about his accomplishments. Perhaps he was put up to it by ambitious courtiers. Regardless, it was not but the feeble plodding of malformed creatures. Wearily, he hauled himself to his feet and shuffled past the youth towards the door. He had barely taken half a dozen steps, however, when Varus found his tongue. What is it that displeases words? What is it about me that displeases you so? He stopped at the unexpected address. Casting a glance over his shoulder, he saw the boy wearing an expression of pure anguish, and in that moment he looked every bit as young as he was. To let his question spill forth, his frustration towards his grandsire must be great indeed. After a moment's pause, he replied under his breath, "Your body." What? The boy's face was of pure confusion, but he offered him no word more, turning away and slowly taking leave of the room. As he made his way to the audience chamber, a self-deprecating smile rose to his lips. Though garlands are known for their large frames, the body he wore was by no means exceptional in that regard, nor was it that the woman he took for his wife. Yet their firstborn son grew a prodigiously tall and robust specimen, unprecedented even among his kind. As the boy grew, his physique was held in awe and admiration by all, though to him it was a source of great vexation. In the end, they were all just malformed creatures, feeble, frail, and foolish, thrashing blindly about in their fleeting, fragmented lives, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Never could they replace his brethren. Yet, in spite of himself, when he cradled the newborn in his arms and stroked that downy hair, he could not help but hope. For what he could not be certain, but he hoped nonetheless. It made little difference in the end, for his son had succumbed to some absurd illness and returned to the underworld long before his time. Not without leaving behind a legacy, however, a living, breathing, ever-present reminder of that momentary lapse. At length, his frail body brought him to his destination. He paused before the door, took a deep breath, and shut his eyes tight as if to will away the din. How sad Emet-Selch's story. And again, if you don't know the story, don't worry about it. This is very much the lore within pre-Shadowbringers for Final Fantasy XIV. But seeing as we do have some time left, we'll go with another story. However, I think I'm going to run an ad quickly because my food is almost here. So I will be right back. Alright, I return. Sorry about that. Can't wait to sink my teeth into those meat buns later. Alright, Small Mercies. I have an idea what this one's about, but I guess we'll see. Small Mercies. This is a tale of days long past, before the infernal light burned unrelentingly in the skies over Novrant. In a deep chamber within the castle of Grunix-Lich, a young Numo peered intently into a flask, its contents illuminated by the moonlight that cascaded from the clerestory above. Beckelug was one of the few of her kind here in Vobert, a nation dominated by the Dran and Galdrent. By those grudging alliance, the kingdom had been formed. The youngsters' aptitude for all things arcane, however, was undeniable, and so it was that they were awarded to post a court. And so it was that they were awarded the post of court mage, along with the use of this chamber, where they toiled day and night to unravel the mysteries of the soul. Though it was closer to dawn than dusk, Beckelug gave no thought to sleep. It was at this late hour that Princess Paldia always came calling. The cheery drawn girl with the curious glint in her eye was fond of Beckelug, whose retiring, reclusive nature could not have been more different from the fawning courtiers among whom she had grown up. And so she would come, time and time again, to speak of every trifling thing that had caught her interest that day. This night, however, the princess offered no word of greeting, nor any word for that matter. Sensing something was amiss, Beckelug set down the flask and turned to see her guest's brow uncharacteristically furrowed. "Dear Peer, whatever is the matter?" Only the princess's closest acquaintance used that nickname, and she had always been pleased for Beckelug to do so, yet she gave no sign of having heard her friend. "Don't tell me. It's that Soldia has inherited the 3 treasures, is it not? Yes, I too would be jealous were I in your place." The royal treasures of Vobert, 3 relics emblazoned with the mark of the 2-headed wolf, had been passed down for generations from ruler to anointed heir. The bequeathal ceremony, which had taken place a few days prior, officially recognized Paldia's elder sister as the next queen of the land, and while Beckelug was not particularly well versed in the affairs of mortals, even they could imagine how this might affect the girl. "Jealous? No, that's not at all. I love my sister, and no one could be wiser or kinder or worthier of the throne than her. I want nothing more than to stay here and support her, as I always have. But father now talks of marriage." Looking at the poor child, her shoulders shaking and tears welling in her eyes, Beckelug chided themselves inwardly. They had assumed from the tales of their brethren that all mortals, however unconsciously, coveted power and position, but they should have known that this one was different. Why else would she visit them of all people? Yet how were they to comfort her? Beckelug had scarcely begun to ponder this conundrum when another visitor, a tall and slender Dran, draped in lavish white robes, strode airily into the chamber. Barely acknowledging Beckelug, let alone begging leave to enter, the court mage Tadric made straight for the girl. "Oh, my poorest Princess Paldia," the mage began, dripping with affected sympathy. "No one feels your pain more than I, yet you must understand his grace's position. Only once you have been married unto another family will the people come to accept your dear sister as the one and true queen." Though visibly taken aback at the sudden intrusion, the girl nonetheless answered quickly. "I know this, of course, and that father only wants the best for his kingdom and his subjects. But what of his daughter?" "Oh, I quite agree, your highness," the mage oozed. "Fortunately, King Roldric is a wise and compassionate man. Could he but see the depths of your dismay, I have no doubt he would conclude that as an unsought marriage will bring happiness to no one." Here he paused for adding, as I should be only too glad to tell him, with your permission, of course. The princess blinked disbelievingly. You would do that? For me? Thank you, Tadric. Thank you with all my heart. Her eyes brightened again. She gave Becklug a sideways glance and whispered, Nice to see that someone understands me. Shoulders sagging, the pneumo let out a weary sigh and returned to their solitary labors. Some days later, the princess came once more to Becklug's chamber and to report the matter had been settled. After hearing Tadric's plea on her behalf, the king had agreed to abandon the plans for her betrothal. There was, however, one condition, that Paldea renounce her status as princess and serve instead as court mage. It is a position I would be only too glad to accept, she declared with a hint of longing. Had I any aptitude at all for magic, and so I come to you. You told me that you were studying the secrets of the soul, yes? That you believed that there was a means by which hidden talents that could slumber within us might be unlocked? Averting their eyes as to avoid the princess's pleading gaze, Becklug shook their head. My research is far from complete, Pia. While it is true I have developed an elixir which can safely stimulate one's dormant physical capabilities, awakening arcane talents is another matter entirely. The procedure would entail making irrevocable alterations to the subject's soul, which I could not in good conscience attempt without exhaustive and lengthy testing. Becklug did their best to explain the dangers. The soul was a complex and delicate thing. They said, and even the slightest misstep could do untold harm to her mortal body, or worse. But Princess Paldea would not relent. I don't care. All I want is to stay here with my family. If I cannot meet father's conditions, I will be sent far away. We may never see each other again. The girl's tone grew ever more impassioned as she continued. Please, Becklug, you're the only one who can save me. Though they would not admit it, the young pneumo shared her feelings. They had no desire to lose their best friend in that only castle, their only friend beyond the flasks and tomes. Besides, after all the kindness the princess had showed them in their spare time there, did they not owe her that much? Crimson. Actually, that's a good time for me to posture check. I was slouching like a shrimp. All right. Where were we? Right here. After staring at the floor for a while and finding no help there, Becklug grudgingly nodded. The next day, Paldea's newfound powers were recognized by the king, and she proudly took her place amongst the finest mages of the court. Though her status had changed, Paldea's visits remained as frequent as ever. Listening to the girl breathlessly staring at the minutiae of her days, Becklug's lingering doubts about the powers that they had bequeathed her were gradually eased, yet their heart was not entirely free of worry. Word has it that strange beasts have been appearing near Longmirror Lake of late. Promise me you'll take care of yourself, Pia. In the decades since King Roldrick and I had... Wait, is she still talking? I think she's still talking. In the decades since King Roldrick, I had ascended the throne, the kingdom of Vobert and its people had enjoyed a period of... Wait. Oh, no one's talking. It's King Roldrick the First. Let's try that again. In the decades since King Roldrick I had ascended to the throne, the kingdom of Vobert and its people had enjoyed a period of nigh uninterrupted peace. Yet this only served to make the news that a shepherd boy had been found butchered all the more shocking. The boy had reportedly fallen prey to a fearsome beast which had appeared as if from nowhere. Though the fiend was quickly dispatched by the royal knights, a similarly grisly incident followed a few days later, casting a pall over the city that would not be lifted. While it was initially assumed that the beasts had wandered into the kingdom from parts unknown, further investigation uncovered a more disturbing truth. The beasts, in fact, been sons and daughters of Vobert, whose bodies had undergone a ghastly transformation through the influence of some unholy power. This revelation plunged the kingdom into chaos, no one knowing when their neighbors or their loved ones might metamorphose into bloodthirsty abominations. The dark days that followed, it was Princess Saldia who arrived like a comet to pierce the nation's gloom. I told you no one was worthy of the throne. I told you no one was worthy of the throne. Paldia beamed as she raced into the room. Saldia now fights at Vanguard for a battle against the monsters. The girl had every reason to be proud of her sister. Relations between Vobert's knights and its court mages had always been strained at best and outright hostile at worst. And yet, the Crown Princess Saldia had managed to unite them under her leadership, assembling a fighting force blessed with enough might and magic to put down each threat as soon as it arose. Though the cause of the ghastly phenomenon remained a mystery, the crisis had at the very least been contained. Hello, Paffy. Thank you for the distraction. Thanks for subbing, pal. Really appreciate it, man. Where was I? Ah, yes. Back at the castle, however, the matter weighed heavy on Becklug's heart, privy as they were to a terrible secret, that the methods they had revealed to Paldia in her hour of need might, in theory at least, turn mortals into monsters. But could she stoop so low? No. The new Mo shook their head, comforting themselves that it would never so much as occur to the pure-hearted girl to use the knowledge they had shared in such a way. And so they returned to their studies, hopeful that the worst was past. Alas, it was not long before the news arrived to give lie to that hope. Crown Princess Saldia had been wounded in the front lines, failed, it was said, by one of their knights who had since been expelled from the guard in disgrace. Faced with such distressing tidings, Becklug could only seek solace in their research, engrossing themselves ever more deeply in their work. Whatever was behind this, it was none of their concern. Sooner or later, the culprit would be found and forced to answer for those odious acts. The world had a way of balancing itself out, and this town would be no exception. Everything would be right in the end. Thanks, Paffy. Take care. I know it must be late over there, so I hope you rest well. Before we go to the next section of the story, I just wanted to kind of take a peek at this meat bun. I'm really hungry. Ooh, that looks good. Ooh, these are small. Wait, what is this? Oh, this is the... Ooh, that's fresh mint. Ooh. Oh, I'm so gonna enjoy eating that. Sorry, I ordered pho. Pho and meat bun. But we're streaming right now, so I can't obviously read the story and eat at the same time, so I'm putting it away. Alright, where were we? How many moons passed since then? Their every waking hour consumed by their studies, Bekla could scarcely say. That night, too, they were peering intently into a flask when the door to their study flew open and someone raced down into the room. Turning around with a start, their gaze was met by none other than Sul Ol, a fellow Numo who had served as a steward to the king. "Beglug, at last we have unmasked the villain behind the infernal transformations." Beglug suppressed a gasp. It was that moment they had been waiting for, but also the one that they had dreaded. They did their best to appear impassive as Sol Ul continued. "It was that fiend Tadric, a band of adventurers as good as caught him in the act." Beklug breathed a sigh of relief, knowing now beyond a shadow of a doubt that their dear Claudia was innocent.
I will be joining the adventurers to hunt the traitor down and bring him to justice. But monsters swarm the grounds even as we speak. You must lock yourself in here until the danger has passed.
Their warning delivered, Sol Ul made to leave, but Becklug called after them.
Wait, where is Pia? Where is Poldia?
Rest easy,
the older Numo replied firmly.
She is safe in her chambers, and I must go arranged...
Whoa, I lost my spot.
She is safe in her chambers, and I have arranged for one of the adventurers to keep watch over her. And with that, I must go.
Yet Becklug could not rest easy. They had met with the adventurers of whom Sol Ul had spoken, and they seemed like an eminently capable bunch, one Becklug had been happy to assist. They were, nonetheless, strangers to the land, and Paldia's life was at stake. Panic gripping her heart, they dashed out of the study, hells bent on preventing their best and only friend coming to harm. But Becklug was a scholar, not a fighter, and with monsters lurking around every corner, they could do little to save scuttle between the shadows. Despite their efforts, however, they soon found themselves face to face with a slavering beast.
Mercy!
They croaked, aghast.
Out of the way, you stupid mutt!
The silver-haired swordsman was right in front of them before Becklug knew she was there, plunging her blade into the hideous creature, which seemed every bit as shocked as its prey. After watching it slump lifelessly to the ground, the elf cast a cold glance towards a cowering figure at their feet, and then raced down the hall without so much as another word. If Becklug was not mistaken, she was one of Ardbert's companions, which meant she may be the self-same adventurers of whom Sol Ul had entrusted Paldia's care. Instantly forgetting the umbrage they had taken at being likened to a dog, they set off after the woman as fast as their legs could carry them, coming upon her just as she was kicking down the door to Paldia's private chambers.
How dare you!
Becklug screamed, barging past the adventurer in search of their friend, and there she was. Becklug stood frozen. From behind them, the swordsman woman advanced, her blade drawn.
Too late, it would seem. All we can now is put her out of her misery.
The sight of the elf's blood-stained blade was enough to shake Becklug from their reverie.
No, have mercy on the girl, I beseech you.
Are you mad? The woman spat back. Look at her arm, it's already begun. Becklug knew in her heart that the adventurer was right. Yet they did not yield. They could not stand idly by and let their best friend, however hopeless in their plight, be slaughtered before her eyes.
Please, I have studied the secrets of the soul. I may very well be able to save her. You must spare her life. You must.
Ah, Bloop, hi. Hi, Bloop. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Let's see here. It was a lie, of course. The process, once begun, was quite irreversible, yet they had to try. The adventurer gave the Numo fairly clinging to her leg a searching look, then let out a sigh.
This castle has a gaol, yes? Or a jail, yes?
Cursing all the while, the silver-haired swordsman knocked Pia unconscious and carried her down to the dungeons, with Becklug muttering directions. No sooner had she locked the door than she took to her heels, doubtless eager to join her companions in the search for the traitor's Tadric. Becklug, for their part, sat still as stone in front of the cell, waiting for their friend to awaken. And when she last did, it was words unlike they had heard her speak before.
Hells take you, Tadric.
The girl seethed, her voice in a feral snarl.
You promised me you would bury my sister and make me queen. I tricked that dog into divulging secrets you craved, and you betrayed me.
It was as if the girl could not see the friend of whom she spoke sitting right there in front of her eyes. Clawing at her skin, she began to daub the dungeon walls with glyphs of her own blood.
Wretched sister, if it were not for you, I would have lived happiness with my family forever. Curse you, Sladia. Curse your rotten soul.
Becklug sat agog throughout the whole tirade, but at this they found their voice once more.
Enough, Pia. Is your sister not part of the family you hold so dear? How many times did you tell me how much you loved and admired her?
Slowly, the girl turned. Peering into her widened eyes, Becklug could see a dawning realization, as if she were only now remember things long forgotten.
You are right. I love father, and my mother, and my sister too. What have I done?
As words left her lips, she slumped forward, a shadowy mist beginning to seep from her body before dissipating into the air. In that moment, Becklug saw the truth, that Tadric had bound the poor girl's heart with dark magics and forced her to do his bidding.
Forgive me, Becklug, my friend.
A tear trembled from her cheek and struck the dank stone floor. When at length she raised her head, Becklug saw that the curious glint in her eye had been extinguished. Only despair remained there. Her stare a wordless cry for mercy. Before the vesper bell tolled that day, Becklug left the castle never to return. And though Ardbert and his fellows succeeded in apprehending the architect of these tragedies, they could not save Sladia from one final act of spite. Thus was the proud kingdom of Vobert robbed of its heir and condemned to an age of decline. When the flood came, it was a shadow of its former glory, but all powerless to defend itself against sin-eater hordes, and so did the kingdom fall, and fall for good. It is claimed that poorest Paldia was still in her cell on the day Grudnislich was finally abandoned. As for what became of the ill-starred princess after that, neither Becklug nor anyone can say. Actually, I can say because I remember this. In the game, there is a fate where the boss their name is Poorest Paldia. And you can kind of see it in this image. The fate boss that you fight is this chimera, which is Paldia, who was transformed by the court mage. So it's a little messed up, but essentially you are putting down the princess who had been transfigured into a monster many eons ago, because you arrive like much, much later. Very sad. Shadowbringers has a lot of sad stories, but that's just kind of the theme. it's a tragic tale. But that was it for Small Mercies. We still have some time. I suppose I can take one more story. This one, I think I know what this one is. A dream partnership. But I'm going to take a quick hydration break. So I'm going to run an ad, and I'll see you guys in a minute, okay? Okay, we're back from the ad. But you know what? It's already 10 o'clock, and it is approximately an hour since I started stream, which kind of was the goal, where I stream basically for minimum 1 hour every day, as best as I can, if my schedule allows. And I still have to eat and do some other stuff, so I think I will actually stop there. Plus, that means next stream we're gonna finish this off with the next three stories: a dream partnership, ere our curtain falls, and an unpromised tomorrow. All beautiful stories, I'm sure. As for raids, I think we're just gonna leave it as is. We're just gonna stop here. So thank you for everyone who did manage to stop by, say hi, and for those still here, I'll see you tomorrow, roughly the same time, or not. I don't know. I'll probably post it on Discord when I'll be going live. But this is one of the many stories that we'll be telling today. Oh, well, we will be telling together on stream. And who knows, maybe I'll do some cozy gaming, but for the most part, solo tabletop RPGs and storytelling